the show where I, Paper King, talk about films I've seen and some other things that I feel like talking about. So, this is the first episode of this podcast, or I'm calling it a podcast anyway. This might be a bit rough. This might not be, it's not going to be perfect. The first episodes of podcasts are never perfect. I'd like to see a podcast where the first episode is absolutely 100% perfect. If you could find an episode of a podcast that's like that, let me know. I'd like to see it. So, as this podcast series goes on, while I continue to upload more videos, if there's anything that you feel I should improve on, whether it be like the visuals, the presentation, whatever, if you think there's anything I should improve on, just let me know and I'll look into those things that you think I should fix. For this first episode, I figured I'd give a little introduction about how I got into movies and stuff like that. Just an introduction on movies. I mean, people who have been following me for many years already know who I am. I mean, I've been making YouTube poops since 2015, but most people only know me for YouTube poops. They don't know that I also have an account on Letterboxd where I post reviews about movies I've seen recently. So, here's just a small, I'm hoping small, introduction of how I got into movies and why I enjoy watching them every day, almost every day. So my interest in movies goes back to somewhere around 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. I had, well, I used to be the co-owner of this YouTube channel called Space Cheese, which is a collaboration channel with my good friend Sack and Blob. He's the guy who hosted the Steamed Hams YouTube poop collab, for those of you who don't know, and him and I have been friends for many years, ever since 2015, the year that I opened my YouTube channel, and I no longer run the Space Cheese channel. I left the channel, but Sagan Blob still runs it every so often. But anyway, Sagan had this idea for Space Cheese that we could both work on, and that was like top 10 comedy movies. I think it was top 10 comedy movies, and he gave me this like list of movie, like this huge Google Drive file filled with movies, or movies he found funny, movies that were comedies, and I figured, well, I wasn't much into movies at the time. I figured, well, if it gives us something to talk about on the Space Cheese channel, might as well watch these movies and see which ones are the funniest. So, yeah, I'm down for the idea. So I watched some movies and I was typing down ideas and my thoughts on these movies, but eventually I was starting to lose interest in this project. Like there was so many movies to watch, like this list of movies, this file of movies that Sagan sent me. There were a lot of movies in that file. And at the time, I didn't have like a TV in my room. I was watching these movies on my computer, and honestly, I wasn't really enjoying them at the time. I wanted to work on YouTube poops, so I figured, I had enough of this. I'm gonna tell Sagan I'm not interested in the project. I just feel like dropping out, and of course, I didn't tell him that in a negative way. I was positive. I was sharing my honest thoughts on this whole project. And looking back, I wish I didn't abandon it. I probably should have continued working on it, but I, to be honest, there's already so many top comedy movie lists out there. I mean, yeah, it would be cool if Sagan and I had our own opinions, own top 10 lists, but at the same time, there's already so many top 10 comedy movie lists out there. I mean, guess it wouldn't really make sense if there was another top 10 comedy list. I'm not really sure, but long story short, the top 10 comedy movie list was not complete. Fast forward to 2020, the announcement of the streaming service HBO Max caught my eye. I don't know why it did. Yeah, I think I do know why. It was their huge selection of movies that caught my eye. They all looked so cool, so interesting. So I figured, yeah, why not? I'll sign up for a free trial of HBO Max and see what it's like. And I was hooked. I really enjoyed all the content that HBO Max had to offer. So I had opened a Letterboxd account many months prior. I think beginning of 2020, like shortly after lockdown started, but I didn't use it that much. I only used it like every so often, but it was HBO Max that led me to use my Letterboxd account more often, and now I use it pretty much every day. I mean, can't really imagine my life without Letterboxd now. So yeah, basically the rest of my story with movies is history. I mean, that's basically all you need to know. I've been watching movies ever since. Yeah, there's other parts of the story, like how he started collecting physical media, like Blu-rays, 4K Blu-rays, and how I got a TV in my room and everything. But those are just like minor things. Not really, they don't really play major parts in my story with movies, unless you really want them to play major parts. Now that I got that story out of the way, time to talk about a movie that I've seen. Um, just one movie for now. I'll definitely talk about multiple movies in future episodes, but for now, just one movie. No, keep it simple. I don't need to go overboard for this first episode, you know? So, for this episode, I figured I'd talk about a movie that I think everyone will like. It's a feel-good movie that'll really make you glad, really make you happy. And that movie is Field of Dreams from 1989 and directed by Phil Alden Robinson. The film stars Kevin Costner, Amy Madigan, James Earl Jones, Ray Liotta, Burt Lancaster, among others. So, Costner plays an Iowa farmer named Ray, who grew up with baseball. Like baseball was his entire life. And one day he hears a mysterious voice out of nowhere that tells him to build a baseball diamond, like right in the middle of his cornfield. At first, Ray doesn't know what to think of it, but he eventually does build a baseball diamond in the middle of his cornfield. However, the voice doesn't stop there. Even when the spirits of deceased baseball players show up. So basically, Ray has to solve this mystery, continue finding the reason why this mysterious voice is talking and what it'll eventually lead up to. This is basically one of those follow your dream movies. If you if you believe not only in yourself but also in what you're trying to achieve, you can go a long way. That dream of yours will come a long way. People will think you are crazy, but you should still keep on believing. Now, there's lots of movies with this kind of message. Some good, some bad, but Field of Dreams just oddly works, you know? I mean, despite its familiar message, it still works. It's still a really good film. This film isn't just about following your dreams, it's also about how important baseball is, since Ray, grew up with baseball, and how baseball is way more than just hitting a ball with a stick. It's about laughter and friendship and having really good times. Ray is so desperate, so eager to find out where this voice is coming from and why it's speaking to him. So he basically, goes out of his way to solve this mystery, and they really, give Ray enough character, enough depth to make the viewer really interested in this story, really interested in where this mystery will end up going. There is a lot to this mystery, but as it progresses, it becomes more interesting. They even have time to share information about these deceased baseball players, like Shoeless Joe Jackson and Moonlight Graham, and there's enough time in the movie to explain why these baseball players are very important and how all of them have played their part and they're all very unique in their own ways. And once these spirits of the deceased baseball players show up, not everyone can see them at first. At first, only Ray and his family can see the spirits. His wife Annie and his daughter Karen. And once again, believing in the game is what plays a part in seeing these spirits. Like, I believe that in order to see these spirits, you must believe in baseball. Believe that it's a great thing, you know? And of course, when you follow a dream, there's gonna be some obstacles, like things to get out of your way. And in this case, with the cornfield being replaced by a baseball field, Ray has not been able to do well financially. Like, the cornfield's the source of his and his family's income, without the cornfield, and they're going bankrupt. And Annie, her brother, I believe his name was Mark. Yeah, Mark. Annie's brother, Mark, is willing, like he has an offer to buy the land from Ray, but Ray does not want to sell. I mean, all the spirits are showing up, but Mark cannot see these spirits, probably because he doesn't believe in the game, or he's just so desperate in buying the land. But regardless, Ray still goes after that dream. He even goes out of the way, goes out of town to, I know it's crazy, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And the only reason Ray goes out of town is because, even after building the baseball diamond, even after these spirits show up, the mysterious voice still keeps on talking, and that's where the mystery, really starts to become interesting. Like, Ray just built a baseball field. I mean, he did what he thought he had to do, but apparently it's not done yet. By the way, these aren't spoilers or anything. I mean, I'm not giving away very, very important plot points. I mean, this like stuff to expect before you go in. I mean, deceased baseball players, spirits are going to be showing up. I mean, some things are going to happen. I mean, I'm just telling you the things that I'm assuming that you or other people already know. Another thing I'd like to point out, like, the cinematography, like, especially during the night, like, all the scenes that take place during the night are just beautiful, very touching, Ray talking to these spirits, especially Shoeless Joe Jackson. Like, he plays, out of all the, like, spirits, he plays the biggest part in this movie because, Ray, like, keeps on talking about him. And, like, there are moments together, and any of the moments that take place during the night, it's those moments, the cinematography, the camera work, they really bring these scenes to life. They really stand out, especially when combined with that music, the soundtrack, the background music, the composition by James Horner. And James Horner, he's like one of those composers that I automatically recognize his name. He's done music for tons of, big movies. And he's like one of those names that I instantly think of when I think of great movie composers. Like him and John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, James Newton Howard. It's that James Horner composition. It just sounds so peaceful, like all throughout, like when you're again with the dream stuff, but following your dreams, talking to the spirits, it's this quiet, peaceful music, that really adds to what's going on, really adds to the atmosphere of these night scenes. And even in the daytime, they make these daytime scenes sound pleasant too. I mean, even with a mystery to be solved, like who needs suspenseful and suspicious music, Even with peaceful, again, I'm mentioning the word peaceful again, but that's basically what this composition is, just peaceful. It really makes you feel good and warm inside. Now, let's talk about James Earl Jones. You all know who he is, Darth Vader himself. Bet you can't think of any other film that James Earl Jones was in besides the Star Wars films, but anyways, he comes into play eventually after a scene where Ray and Annie are at a parent-teacher event, like conference, about the banning of books by an author named Terrence Mann, and that's the character that James Earl Jones plays. And this scene, besides the discussion of banning books on him, it's a great scene because in this scene, Annie destroys another woman with facts and logic. Yes, it is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing to see her, stop the spread. It's great to see Annie stopping the spread of neo-fascism. Facts and logic. Gotta love it. And it's these, like, random scenes, that makes Ray believe that they could be connected to solving this mystery of the voice. Like, And that's why Ray goes out of town, like drives all the way to see Terrence Mann. And I'm not gonna spoil much. I'm not gonna say exactly what happens. I mean, I'm telling you what happens, but I'm not telling you what happens. I mean, he goes to see Terrence Mann, but I'm not gonna tell you like what he does to Terrence. I'm not gonna say what Terrence does to Ray. I'm gonna say, James Earl Jones. I mean, no matter what role he takes, no matter what film is in, he always gives a very entertaining performance, and this is no exception. It's always great to see him on screen. He's just one of those actors. Now let's talk about Burt Lancaster. He plays Moonlight Graham, or Doc Moonlight Graham, and he does appear later in the film. Again, I'm not going to spoil why he's in the film. He's just in the film. And Burt Lancaster was a actor in like classic Hollywood. I think like 50s, 60s, but this was his very last film. This was Burt Lancaster's very last film before he died. And for his last film, this was a really good note to end on. He gives, very memorable performance as Moonlight Graham. Honestly, I don't think Lancaster could have chose a better film to end his career on. I think this is, probably the perfect note to end on. Perfect note to end on for a long, really good career. If I had to choose one negative thing about this film, it'd have to be a small part near the beginning. Like, the beginning has Ray talking about his history of baseball and his history of his father, but like the narration at the beginning doesn't really go anywhere. Like it's not referred to again. I mean, Ray does say that like nothing's been the same ever since he started hearing the voice, but like the film never has a narration from Ray again. So like I feel like I mean yeah, the narration I guess is important to like introduce the viewers to like the characters and the setting, but still, I mean, if you're gonna have, Ray narrate the beginning of the movie, you might as well have him narrate the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? Honestly, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about, like, what happens in the film. I mean, if I talk about the film more, then I would give away a lot more details and spoil the film, and, unless a film absolutely requires spoiling, I really don't want to spoil the film, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, Field of Dreams, it's often called, I mean, I tend to call it, like the quintessential dad film, like a film that lots of dads seem to really like. It, you could definitely see why. I mean, I'm sure a lot of dads out there really connect to the game of baseball, and the game really means a lot to them, and that's why they seem to really like this film. Well, except for my dad, he doesn't like this film. Well, he says he doesn't, but it probably has been a long time since he's seen the film, so who knows whether he likes it or not. But even if you're not a dad, I still think there's something for everyone in this film, something that everyone will enjoy, and that's basically the reason why I chose this movie for this episode. I wanted to start with something, that everyone will like, not just a movie that only a select group of people will like. The impact that this film had left on baseball and the baseball community is pretty big, as there's an entire website dedicated to the baseball field in Field of Dreams, in Dryersville, Iowa. And there's an entire website dedicated to the Field of Dreams. Website where you can read information about the movie and look up how you can visit the place. It's now a tourist attraction. There's even photographs of people at the field. It's, a very popular tourist attraction, not just among baseball fans, but also among, movie fans like me. And that's what I like about the movies. If you create a story that touches a lot of people, if you create one of the greatest stories of all time, then an attraction in the film, like a location, might be a tourist attraction, it'll become very popular, very famous, and lots of people will remember a movie for that location. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Field of Dreams. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest watching it. And if you have seen it, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know. I'd like to hear from you. Well, that about wraps up this episode of Paper King at the Movies. Hope you enjoyed this first episode, and be sure to stick around for more episodes coming soon. Catch you later, paper fans.